All right, welcome everybody. This is our first official episode as 32 and Goal. I'm excited about that. But unfortunately, due to some, unforeseen circumstances, our other host Ryan, who's supposed to be here tonight, was unable to make it. And Rob and Tyler, our, third and fourth host, they had prior engagements, so they were also unable to make it. So normally we do these live episodes every Friday. We've had a couple of them so far. This is going to be our third official Friday podcast. But, I was banned for 24 hours on Twitch because I screwed up on something. And, so I forced myself to do it on Saturday. But typically these are going to be Friday nights. That way I can get them uploaded to YouTube, Saturday, and have them in time for you guys to watch them Saturday night, right before you guys go to bed and watch Sunday football all day. That being said, because it's just me, myself, and I today, I'm going to be keeping it short, because there's not going to be a lot of banter, which, is something I like in podcast, is when, we have a couple different opinions from either side. Maybe there's some back and forth, maybe some arguments, and, you can't typically do that by yourself. We are live, though, on Twitch at WackityYak. I will include that in the description below on YouTube. And for everyone on Twitch, thank you guys for coming. You can also follow us on Twitter. We have our official Twitter now, and that's going to be 32andGoal. So we're doing it live on WackityYak Twitch because that's already my Twitch. That's already my Twitch handle. I didn't want to create a second Twitch handle for a once weekly podcast. I just didn't. I like the idea of having just one, so I wanted to keep it that way. So if that's a little bit confusing, I'll clear it up in the description below. But, let's get started. I want to first talk about this Thursday night football game that happened a couple nights ago on Thursday, the Eagles and the Giants. The Eagles ended up winning 34-13. All four of us here had the Eagles winning. I don't think any of us really thought the Giants had a chance. There's a lot of toxicity going on in that locker room. I don't think, they're kind of lost on each other. I don't really think they're going to be able to turn this season around the way they would like to. That being said, we did see some powerful performance from, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had 13 carries, 130 yards, 1 touchdown, and 9 receptions, 99 yards. He almost became the first Giant in history in the Giants franchise to have, 100 receiving yards and 100 rushing yards in one game. The dude is animal. I would not be surprised if he gets Rookie of the Year. It's gonna be a close matchup for who gets Rookie of the Year, which is pretty awesome. Typically you have a pretty strong front runner, but this year there's some good ones. And Saquon Barkley is one of them. Carson Wentz threw 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. And, with Jay Ajayi being injured, the carries were pretty split, on the Eagles offense between Smallwood and Clement. 51 yards and 43 yards respectively. That's kind of what we said it was going to happen, was they were going to split those carries without Jay Ajayi there carrying the blunt of the load. Eli Manning, 24 for 43. 281 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. And there's a lot of talk going around about Odell Beckham Jr. being unhappy with this New York Giants team. And, he brought Lil Wayne on a show and they were talking this and that. They were pushing the blame on this and that. And, watching this game on Thursday night, you can kind of see why these guys are kind of disgruntled with this team, why Odell Beckham Jr. is kind of disgruntled with this team. And, it's not exactly surprising. We saw a couple times where Saquon Barkley was being double, triple teamed, and Eli Manning was still choosing to go to Barkley over, Odell Beckham Jr. That's on Eli at that point, especially when they didn't get the touchdown in that situation, when OBJ only had one safety on him. I'd be a little frustrated too. Odell Beckham Jr. is one of the better receivers in the league, and when you're not getting him the ball, there's going to be a little bit of toxicity there. But yeah, the Eagles ended up winning that game. I don't really think anyone thought the Giants had a chance. The Giants going forward, they're going to have to get their stuff together, or else we're going to continue seeing this like disembodied shell of a team. They're no longer who they once were. And, as far as receiving goes, Odell Beckham Jr. wasn't even the second receiver on the team. He only had 44 yards, 6 receptions. He only has 1 touchdown on the season. So, you got to start getting Odell Beckham Jr. the ball. I don't know what's wrong with this Giants team. I'm not going to point fingers, but, they got to figure something out if they want to continue going forward, especially, with their schedule coming up. We're looking at the Falcons. The Falcons haven't necessarily been great this year, but it's going to be a tough game regardless. Redskins, 49ers, Buccaneers, Eagles, Bears. They have a tough schedule coming up, and, they need to start getting their stuff together. But let's go on to Sunday games. All right, so game 1, the first game we're going to talk about. Like I said, I'm not going to go too much into this podcast today. I don't want to, bore you guys without having that back and forth that a lot of people like in certain situations. And I think, when you're talking about sports, when there's a lot of it, statistics aside, there is a lot of information and like different perspectives you can have on the game, right? And I don't think that it's fun to just listen to one person talk unless they're interviewing someone. And, I'm not interviewing anyone, nor do I don't plan on having anyone that I interview. I don't think I have that clout yet. So let's get started. The Buccaneers versus the Falcons. The 2-2 Buccaneers are taking on the 1-4 Falcons. Like we said earlier, the Falcons are having a rough season. We'll talk about that. This is going to be, the Buccaneers are coming off a bye. They didn't do so hot last game against the Bears. They played the Bears. They lost 48-10. Mitchell Trubisky put up 6 touchdowns on them. We're looking at possibly the worst defense in the league right now. They do have Jameis Winston coming off, starting his season. He's replacing Fitzpatrick. And that's obviously the transition they need. I know a lot of people are wishing they could continue seeing that Fitzpatrick magic, that Fitz magic, that Patrick magic, whatever you guys want to call it. But, that's their quarterback, and they need to start getting him playing some more. In 2017, Winston was 63.8%, 19 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He was pretty well known for that eating the W speech. But this Buccaneers offense, they're putting up a lot of numbers. And, I've seen some interviews saying that Winston and Fitzpatrick are similar in quarterback skill. And, we'll see. We'll see tomorrow versus the Falcons. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a high-scoring game. The Falcons, Matt Ryan, 68.3% completion percentage on the season, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Julio Jones, 564 yards, 0 touchdowns. I think once Julio Jones starts being able to get those touchdowns, we're going to see a different Falcons team. Both of these teams need this win. This is an NFC South matchup. Currently right now in the NFC South, the Saints are 4-1, Panthers are 3-1. If Bucks can win this game, they'll be 3-2. And if the Falcons win this game, they'll be 2-4. If the Falcons don't win this game, they are 1-5 at the 6-game mark. And that is not somewhere you want to be, at this point in the season. You can almost stick a fork in them at this point in the season if they don't win this game. Especially considering they got a tough schedule coming up. Matt Ryan is, a top 10 quarterback. Julio Jones is a top 5 receiver. Devontae Freeman has been ruled out, and that's going to, cause some issues in their running game. But, that being said, we got the Falcons winning this game. I think they can beat the Buccaneers. I think Winston's going to have a little bit of issues coming his first game back. I believe he's probably going to take it easy on that shoulder, which kind of riddled him with injuries last season. So me, Fallen, which is Tyler, and Rob all have the Falcons winning this game. The Chargers versus the Browns. This will be an interesting game. And we're kind of split, here at 32 and goal on who we think is going to win this game. I have the Chargers winning. Robbie has the Browns winning. And Tyler has the Chargers winning as well. Ryan didn't submit his scores, so I don't have him yet. Or his predictions. He's dealing with some issues, so we'll get those, tweeted out if you guys follow us at 32 and goal on Twitter. Phillip Rivers is having a quiet season, a quietly good season that no one's really talking about. And that's simply because nobody is watching the Chargers. No one's watching the Chargers ever since they moved. They just lost their past owner, and rest in peace to him. But, this team that moved to Los Angeles should have stayed in San Diego. They have no market in Los Angeles, especially with the Rams dominating. That city was going to be determined on who had the best season first. And unfortunately for the Chargers, it wasn't them. They're playing in a soccer stadium that's typically, littered with opposing teams' fans. And so this team has 16 away games. That's pretty much all there is to say about that. That being said, Phillip Rivers is second in passing touchdowns right now in the league with 13. He has a 116.4 passer rating. He is currently having the best season of his career. The Chargers are tied in 11th for, rushing yards per game with 115.6. Melvin Gordon has 334 yards. This Chargers team has a decent offense that goes clutch when they need him to. And led by Phillip Rivers, who, like I said, is having the best career of his, or best season of his career. The Chargers also do really well at using their running backs as receivers. Both Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler are having great receiving yards. Marvin Gordon has 334 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, but he also has 261 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Eckler has 203 yards rushing and 207 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. So this Chargers offense is very dynamic, but they're going against the Browns. And, before the tie in the Steelers, before the Browns got their first win, the Browns were kind of the laughing stock of the NFL. And this season, I think, has changed a lot of people's perspective and their thoughts on Browns. I've always said they were one good quarterback away from being a decent team. They have a shot of winning the division. It's crazy, though, because the Browns have won a game in overtime this year. They've lost a game in overtime this year. They won a game in regulation, lost a game in regulation, and they've had a tie. So they pretty much won or lost any way you can. Last week against the Ravens, they shut down Joe Flacco in the red zone. And it was pretty surprising. The Ravens have a pretty solid defense, and the Browns were able to come away with a win. The Browns were able to come away with a win, 12-9. They held the Ravens to only field goals. They're currently ranked in first with rushing yards. And the Chargers defense has allowed 478, and they're ranked 9. So it's going to be an interesting battle between Carlos Hyde, Nick Chubb, and the Chargers rushing defense. Carlos Hyde has 348 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 fumble, and Nick Chubb has 148 yards, 2 touchdowns. Going forward, I think this Browns team can beat the Chargers. I bet on the Browns the last 2 weeks and won both times. So yeah, you can't necessarily count the Browns out. You can't necessarily count the Browns. The The Browns did win 2 weeks ago, right? I'm not messing that up. No, the Raiders beat them. The Raiders beat them. I'm not even going to talk about that. The Raiders did lose, or they did beat the Browns, and the Browns, beat the Ravens last week. So I got the Chargers winning this game. Robbie has the Browns, and Tyler also has the Chargers. The Colts and the Jets. The Jets are an interesting team. So are the Colts. T.Y. Hilton and Jack Doyle are both out, so we're going to see Eric Ebron being the number one receiver again this week, the tight end, formerly Lions tight end. He's having a good career or good season. 255 yards, 5 touchdowns, which I believe is the same amount he had last year with the Lions. 105 yards and 2 touchdowns came against the Patriots last week. So we're seeing this confidence in Eric Ebron that always separated him from being a good tight end. And when he was playing for the Lions, the fans didn't really take too much of a liking to him. He makes a lot of drop passes. He doesn't really make a lot of good blocks. But, on this Colts offense, they're using him as primarily a receiving tight end rather than a blocking tight end. And that's where Eric Ebron is going to strive. The Colts defense has 17 sacks in the season, 4 from Darius Leonard and 4 from Marcus Hunt. So look to them to see another big game. They're 28th in passing yards and 27th points allowed per game. So assuming, the Colts can step up on defense, Andrew Luck, Eric Ebron, and the rest of this, team, this offense of the Colts should do pretty well. Sam Darnold is sitting at 55.7%, 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. They're 14th in points per game, only getting 24.6 points per game, and 8th in points per game allowed. Their defense is doing all right. Avery Williamson has 27 tackles, 2 sacks. Jamal Adams has 27 tackles and 1 sack. They have 14 sacks and 7 interceptions total and 4 fumble recoveries. But the majority of those interceptions came week 1 against the Detroit Lions, and they really haven't been as productive defensively since then. So a lot of these stats are going to be skewed because of the great game they had against the Lions, which was more or less a fluke game looking at the rest of the games they played. So we're also pretty split on this, with myself and Tyler having the Colts winning and Rob having, Sam Darnold and the Jets beating them. But look again to see Eric Ebron. I believe he's going to have another big game. The Seahawks and the Raiders, the London game. Russell Wilson is sitting at 62.7%, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This Seahawks team is an interesting team, to say the least. Last week they did all right against the Rams. A lot of us were expecting the Rams to blow out the Seahawks, but they held their own. They only lost 33-31 with a field goal that ended up putting the Rams ahead. That was in Seattle, which is a very tough place to play at. Now they're going to Oakland. They're going to be playing the Raiders on the road. Derek Carr, he's having an okay season. He has more interceptions than touchdowns. He has 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. So I don't think Derek Carr is really what everyone thinks he's cracked out to be. I'm not a hater of Derek Carr. But yeah, the Raiders are 7th in total yards, 5th in passing yards, 24th in rushing yards, and 23rd in points per game. So they rely heavily on their, passing, which comes down to, Jordy Nelson having 317 yards and 3 touchdowns. Marshawn Lynch, is pretty much the talk of this game as a ex-Seattle Seahawks player. He knows what it's like to play against the Seattle's offense. Or he knows what it's like to play again on the Seattle's offense. And he's seen the Seattle defense. They're no longer the Legion of Boom. But, they're still holding their own in the secondary. Earl Thomas has 5 passes deflected and 3 interceptions. And Bradley McDougald, I don't know how to say his name. I apologize if you're listening, Bradley. Also has 5 passes deflected and 2 interceptions. So once Legion of Boom, this LOB, as Richard Sherman liked to say, is no longer. It's sad seeing that team gone. I liked watching them play, but that team is disbanded. They're no longer the Legion of Boom, and Earl Thomas and Bradley McDougald are gonna have to step up on the Seahawks, defense if they're gonna stop Derek Carr, and Jordy Nelson. Marshawn Lynch, 331 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's having a great year. He is having a great year. It's nice to see him still active, still eating them Skittles and power pellets, as he likes to call them. So, it's good to see Marshawn Lynch doing all right. Expect him to go beast mode this week. The Seahawks are 28th in rushing yards allowed. So we're going to see a lot of carries, I think, to Marshawn Lynch. The Panthers and the Redskins, I had this whole spiel about this game. I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to be a great game. The Redskins are, 4th in rushing yards allowed. And the Panthers heavily rely on their rushing, with Cam Newton having 165 yards rushing. He has 7 passing touchdowns and 3 passing interceptions, but he has 3 rushing touchdowns. And Christian McCaffrey has 329 yards rushing, 192 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. So this Panthers offense heavily relies on Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. But don't sleep on Devin Funchess, who also has 238 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. He's a player that a lot of people sleep on simply because, you got Christian McCaffrey on this offense. But like I said, don't sleep on him. I think he's going to have a quietly good game against this Redskins team. But yeah, I wouldn't. That's one of those things that, I kind of need someone to go back and forth with me on. But I have the Seahawks. Nope. I have the Panthers winning. And the Panthers winning. All 3 of us have the Panthers winning. Bills versus Texans. Josh Allen sitting at 53.3%, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's not having a great year yet. 31st in total yards. They're 32nd in passing yards, 19th in rushing yards. We're looking at possibly the worst offense in the league going against the Texans. The gunslinger Deshaun Watson, who has 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and probably one of the best wide receivers in the league with DeAndre Hopkins, 594 yards. Expect him to have another big game. Even though the Bills' defense has 10th in passing yards allowed, that's simply because, they're turning it over so close to their own goal line that a lot of teams don't need to go that far to score. So, yeah. They're not doing that great. It's sad to see the Bills team do so bad, but all 3 of us have the Texans winning that game. Cardinals versus Vikings. This seems to be like it's going to be another game. Josh Rosen, he's sitting at 49.2%, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He should have had another interception, but they called it back on defensive holding, so he got away with 1. And that was, in his first game of the year. So, Josh Rosen, I think, is having a decent game. They're coming off of a win, which they needed. David Johnson is pretty much the backbone of this team, of this offense. And Larry Fitzgerald, he's not having a great year. Larry Fitzgerald is one of those names where you think of him and you just think he's going to go clutch every single game. And he's not having that. He has 176 yards on the season and 0 touchdowns. So I don't necessarily think Josh Rosen is capable of getting Larry Fitzgerald the ball when he needs it. With the lack of wide receivers on this team, Fitzgerald is going to be the main target for these defenses, leaving Christian Kirk open. But Christian Kirk isn't necessarily, that go-to wide receiver. He has 234 yards, 1 touchdown, but, that's simply because all the pressure is on Larry Fitzgerald. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins, he has these explosive wide receivers. They are currently 30th in rushing yards, but they have 0 rushing touchdowns on the season. Adam Thielen has 589 yards, 3 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs, 402 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Kyle Rudolph, their tight end, has 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. This team is explosive with this triple threat and Kirk Cousins, another top 10 quarterback, this Vikings offense is doing all right. They're 22nd in points per game. Their secondary is all right, with cornerbacks Xavier Rhodes and, Mike Hughes. Xavier Rhodes has 4 passes defended and 1 interception. And he is primarily one of the main go-to cornerbacks in the league, right? A lot of people, when they talk about cornerbacks, they bring up Xavier Rhodes a lot. And, he doesn't have as many interceptions this year because a lot of quarterbacks are afraid to throw his way. Mike Hughes has 3 passes defended and 1 interception. He has 1 touchdown. He did get a pick 6 and 1 forced fumble. So he's also holding his own on that Vikings secondary. So all 3 of us again have the Vikings winning. Steelers and Bengals, an AFC North matchup. I have the Steelers winning, and both Tyler and Rob have the Bengals winning. Apparently, I don't have a lot of stats on that. But, the Bengals, I should have put a little bit more on this one. I was hoping for, some back and forth again. The Steelers offense is struggling on the, without Le'Veon Bell. That being said, Juju Smith and, that Juju Smith Roethlisberger connection is very threatening this year. For those of you who don't know, Juju Smith also plays Blackout on Twitch. So go check him out at twitch.tv/Juju. If you're interested in seeing him play some Blackout 4 on Twitch. I was watching him last night. He's a funny guy, and he ended up getting his first, well, I don't know if it was his first, but he ended up getting a win in Call of Duty's Battle Royale. So go ahead and check him out, and, let's see how it is. This Bears-Dolphins game. This is going to be an exciting game. So Mitchell Trubisky is coming off his best game of his career. He had 6 touchdowns last week against the Buccaneers. 8 touchdowns on the season, 3 interceptions, and, 1 rushing touchdown, 117 rushing yards. He's doing all right this year. But again, that was primarily against one of the worst defenses in the league. So we're going to see, it's going to be very telling if Mitchell Trubisky and this Bears offense, was a fluke against, the worst defense in the league in the Buccaneers, or if they actually are a decent offensive team. If Mitchell Trubisky can somehow do half as well as he did last game, going forward, if he can squeeze himself into the top 15, top 16 quarterbacks in the league, he is going to have this Bears defense pushing for a Super Bowl. That being said, this game, this Bears-Dolphins game, is going to be very telling whether or not, this offense can do well. We already know, Khalil Mack and this defense are doing well. This defense has 18 sacks, 8 interceptions, 8 forced fumble, 3 fumble recoveries. We're looking at probably the best defense in this Bears team in the league right now. Khalil Mack is obviously the one leading this defense. 5 sacks, 2 passes defended, 1 interception, 1 touchdown, 4 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery from one guy. And what's impressive about this Bears defense is, they only have to have 4 or 5 guys going after the quarterback at all time because of Khalil Mack. And this allows Akeem Hicks to get less pressure. He also has 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles on the season. But this also allows this secondary of this Bears to have, so much coverage in the backfield that they're, pretty much unstoppable defensively. Eddie Jackson has 3 passes defended, 2 interceptions. Eddie Jackson has 2 interceptions. That's crazy. Another thing I want to talk about real quick on this Bears team is Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel, right? Allen Robinson has 217 yards, 1 touchdown, and Taylor Gabriel has 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. These are both guys who came in from different teams, right? They're new to the Bears team in 2018, and the Bears last year struggled hard offensively. Trubisky never really had a receiving team to throw to. The Bears brought in some new receivers, and now they're doing well. So, again, we're going to see how well they do against this Dolphins team. And offensively, it doesn't look good for this Dolphins team. It's we can look for a lot of Dolphins having 3 and outs this week. They're 28th in total yards, 26th in passing yards, 22nd in rushing, 27th in points per game with 19.3 or 19.8. And, Frank Gore has 202 yards. Kenyon Drake has 153 yards. Kenny Stills, wide receiver, has 241 yards and 3 touchdowns. But it's going to be hard for this, Ryan Tannehill and this Dolphins offense to get going. And if they can't push themselves against this Bears defense, which I would not be surprised, they're going to be in trouble for the season. They go 3-3. They start, falling behind this Patriots team. We might see the Patriots slowly pulling away. The Dolphins have the Bears after a bye week, and then next week they have the Lions after a bye week. So, we're gonna see how well this Dolphins team does. They start off the season 3-2, and so who do we have winning? All 3 of us have the Bears winning this game. The Rams Broncos. I'm not gonna really talk too much about the Rams Broncos. I know a lot of people are probably interested in hearing my thoughts about that. But the Broncos did hold their own against the Chiefs, in Denver. The Rams are going to Denver. I wouldn't be surprised if this Broncos defense can do similar things, but the Rams, I think, have a more filled team. I think the Rams are currently the best team in the NFL right now. They have an all-around better team than the Chiefs. So this Broncos team might struggle a little bit offensively going against this Rams defense. And, the Broncos defense might struggle a little bit defensively going against this Rams offense. So all 3 of us, again, agreed that the Rams are going to win. Ravens, Titans. Ravens, Joe Flacco needs to figure out a way to score in that red zone. He struggled last week against the Bears or the Browns like we just talked about. I have the Ravens winning this. Both teams are 3-2, and Tyler and Rob have the Titans winning. Jaguars and Chiefs. The Cowboys are not doing so well against teams this year. Offensively, they're struggling. They rely too heavily on Zeke Elliott, who had a career game against the Lions, but they still should have lost that game on some other stuff. Watching this Cowboys team, I don't like to say this or that. This happened because this happened, but this Cowboys team kind of got bailed out against the refs against the Lions when they got 3, defensive holdings called against the Lions back to back. So, we're looking at a Jaguars team that's capable of beating this Cowboys team, and all 3 of us have the Jaguars winning this game. The Cowboys are pretty much struggling, but no one in the NFC East is doing that well. It's still a competitive race there. Eagles are 3-3, Redskins 2-2, Cowboys 2-3, Giants 1-5. So there's not really a front runner. Cowboys need this to stay competitive in that playoff spot. But I don't see them winning. So I think the Cowboys are probably going to fall to 2-4. And yeah, the Eagles are now 3-3, so they're currently in the lead. Interesting. So, all right, I want to get on to what I think is going to be the game of the week. The Chiefs-Patriots. So, a lot of people obviously are going to be watching this game. Sunday Night Football. Chiefs, the Patriots. 2 of the better teams in the league. The Patriots lost to the Lions earlier. The Chiefs, are 5-0 on the road. It's hard to win in New England. It's hard to win in New England. Patrick Mahomes. I want to talk about this one a little bit more. Patrick Mahomes is currently 63.6% pass percentage, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's leading the NFL in touchdowns. He He has 66 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. The Chiefs are currently 6th in total yards, 12th in passing yards, tied for 11th in rushing yards, 2nd in points per game with 36. This Chiefs offense is stacked. Kareem Hunt, running back, 376 yards, 4 touchdowns, 66 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Tyreek Hill, 425 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kelsey, 407 yards, 3 touchdowns from a tight end. I made a mistake and traded him for Graham earlier in the season. I thought, that Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Graham connection was going to be unstoppable. Unfortunately, Green Bay doesn't like to use tight ends for some reason, so I kind of lost out there. Travis Kelsey, tight end, 470 yards again, 3 touchdowns. Sammy Watkins, another wide receiver for this Chiefs offense, is sitting at 1 touchdown, 254 yards. So this Chiefs offense is stacked. But this Chiefs defense, not stacked. A lot of these games are shootouts. Patrick Mahomes is dangerous outside of the pocket. He knows how to scramble. He knows how to throw the ball. He strives on getting outside that pocket and making those throws. Similar to Aaron Rodgers. He made a left-handed throw. Insane, absolutely insane. But this Chiefs defense, 32nd in total yards allowed, 32nd in passing yards allowed, 24th in rushing yards allowed, and 19th in points allowed per game. So the red zone does all right, but the rest of their team, the rest of their defense is struggling a little bit. They do have 15 sacks, 6 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles. Anthony Hitchens leads this team with 28 tackles, 18 assisted tackles, and D Ford, linebacker, 14 tackles, 4 sacks. This game is going to be very interesting. It's going to be a shootout. We're looking at, the best rookie, not the best rookie, the best young quarterback going against, the timeless wonder of Tom Brady. Tom Brady currently has 67.6% completion. 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 1 rushing touchdown. They're tied for 20th in total yards, 20th in passing yards, 13th in rushing yards. Tied for 9th in points per game with 26.6. Sony Michael, running back, is doing all right. 294 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski is sitting at 308 yards, 1 touchdown. And running back James White has 110 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 270 receiving yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. That doesn't even talk about Josh Gordon's impact on this offense. It doesn't talk about Edelman coming back from his 4-game suspension. Now that this Patriots offense is, full, healthy, Gronkowski is going to be a little bit banged up because he's been pretty much the primary target of this Patriots offense going into these first 5 games. So, it's going to be interesting to see these teams. It's going to be a huge numbers game. But we are in New England, defensively, the Patriots are doing okay. They're kind of sitting in the middle of the road. They're 16th in yards allowed, 14th in passing yards allowed, 21 in rushing yards allowed, 9th in points per game, 21.6. They're getting 21.6 yards up per game. So both of these, the Patriots defense is a lot better than the Chiefs defense right now. They have less sacks. But Tom Brady's not getting a lot of pressure. Neither is Mahomes. So it's going to be a shootout. Neither of these two defenses really can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And these offensive lines are holding their quarterbacks, to barely being touched this season. A lot of that has to do with Patrick Mahomes' ability to scramble outside of the pocket. Other teams, last week, with Patrick Mahomes winning, the Chiefs winning in who did they play? The Broncos. A better defense than the Broncos would have. No. They didn't play the Broncos last week. It was, who did the Chiefs play? Did the Chiefs not play this? Oh, the Jags. I actually had the Jags winning that game. Which, but like, a better team. Hey, I'm new here. Hey, welcome. Thank you for following. A better team. I thought the Jags defensively were going to be able to do work against this Chiefs offense, but unfortunately, I was wrong. Thank you for following. I appreciate that. So we'll see. Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady, Sunday Night Football. It's going down. We're pretty split. Robbie and I have the Patriots winning. It's in New England. Patriots do pretty well there. And Tyler has the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes winning. This could go either way. Both of these offenses are stacked. We're probably looking at what is going to be the AFC Championship game as of right now. Both of these teams are doing really well. Kind of scared me. Both these teams are doing really well. The Patriots are 3-2. The Chiefs are 5-0. It's going to be a good game. I'm excited. We're going to live tweet during the game. So make sure you guys come check that out. The last game of the week is going to be Monday Night Football. 49ers versus the 1-4 49ers versus the 2-1 Packers. As much as I do not. I'm sorry, Mohammed. As much as I don't want the Packers to win as a Lions fan, I think the Packers are going to win this game. The key to stopping Aaron Rodgers, though, is you got to keep him inside the pocket. I was watching this interview with Dan Orlovsky where they asked who the most dangerous quarterback outside the pocket is. This year we can make an argument for Patrick Mahomes, but, career-wise, Aaron Rodgers has that. When he steps outside the pocket, he's going to make an insane play. That being said, with a lot of their receivers injured, we'll have to check the injury report tomorrow to see who's actually in and who's actually out. If the Packers have, some of their better receivers, Cobb, Adams playing, they're going to do all right. Jimmy Graham needs to start getting a lot more targets in the red zone. But, again, they're not getting separation. They're forcing Aaron Rodgers to step outside the pocket. He becomes very deadly outside the pocket, but they're not getting separation when they have to scramble. They're often tripping over each other, sometimes in the same corner. This Packers offense needs to do a lot better. But as of right now, I don't see this Packers offense doing a lot better than they are now. Obviously if Robbie or Tyler, both Packers fans, were here, they'd argue with me. But, all three of us have the Packers winning 49 Jimmy G. It's going to be a tough game for them. It is in Lambeau. It's hard to win at Lambeau. But, yeah, I don't really think, statistically, Bethard has what it takes to stop this Packers team. I don't think he'll be able to be in a shootout against this team. It's going to be tough. So that's it for, who we think is going to win, who we think is going to lose. So again, I'm just going to read over who we think it is. Ryan, just sent me who he thinks is going to win. So, I'll go over his list real quick while I'm going over the rest of them. So he has winning this week. He has Falcons, Bengals, Browns, Seahawks, Bears, Vikings, Jets, Panthers, Texans, Rams, Jags, Titans, and Chiefs. Ooh. It's going to be insane. It's going to be absolutely insane. We can talk about that a little bit more. I wish he was here to discuss this with us. Going forward, we will have the full team on these Friday night, podcast. We're doing these live every Friday, so make sure you guys follow us. Check the description below. And, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, follow us on everywhere you need to follow us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you hit that follow button if you're watching on Twitch. Make sure you hit any sort of, like, re-like, tweeter, twat. Probably shouldn't say that. I was just trying to be funny, but oops. But, yeah, we're looking at some pretty good games this week. But obviously, the game of the week is going to go to the Chiefs-Patriots. Our Lions are on the bye week, so we can't talk about them too much. But, yeah, thank you guys for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the first episode of 32andGoal. Again, I'm your host. So, it's been real. It's been fun. I will see you guys next week for a full live episode, and then we might put in some episode Monday morning to talk about the Sunday games, Tuesday morning to talk about the Monday game. I'm sure Rob should be here for that Monday morning game, so I'm sure he will have a lot to say about this Packers 49ers game. So, he is a Packers fan. So until then, I will see you guys. Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. Have a good one.